Hi everyone, I am Sumant. In this video, let's discuss the difference between iterator and generator. So before going to this iterator, I would like to explain you the concept of the iteration. So it's a process where the same logic is being repeated again and again. So that's called as iteration. If you just use for loop, right? The same thing, the same logic is performed again and again, right? So that's an example of iteration. So that is called as iteration. And next thing you have to understand is iterable and iterator. So what is iterable? So iterable is also an object by which we can iterate on that. Let's say an example of list. So here I will just create a list here, and you can see here I just created a list of 6 values. And if I just use like for I in A, print I, if I just try to enter, you can see like we got the values 1 2 3 4, like we got the values present in this list. So list is an example of an iterable. Not only list, if you take a tuple, if you take dictionary, if you take a string, right, everything, these are all the examples of iterables. It means we can just loop over those. So they are called as iterables. And next thing is iterator. So iterator is also an object. The special function of this iterator is where like it just remember its last iteration. So that's called as, that is iterator. And the next thing you have to understand is iterable is not an iterator, but iterator is iterable, right? So if you just, like I have the list, right? If I just give dir of A, so if I just give the dir of A is list, right? You can see all the methods available in, like all the methods available for this list A. So here you can see the iter method, but there is no next method in list. If it want to be an iterator, it should contain both iter method as well as next method. So you can see here we didn't have next method here. So that's the reason why it is not an iterator. So now let's understand like how to create an iterable to iterator. Then we will understand what's the advantages of these iterators, right? So here if you want to create an iterable to iterator, you can just use the iter of method, and you can just pass the list, right? You can just pass the list. So here you can see this is an list iterator, and you can see the object, like you can see this is it created an iterator object. So if you want to create an iterable to iterator, you can just use this iter of method, or you can just use like a dot double underscore iter. So you can see even here, like even in this way, you can just convert an iterable to iterator, right? And you can see here I'm just storing that in another variable b, and if I just print b, you can see this is an iterator. Now if you want to access the elements in this iterator, you can just use, right, you can just use next. You can just use the next of method, next of b. You can see we got 1, right? And again if I just try to run this, you can see 2. It means it's just iterating from where it left. You can see in the previous case it just stopped at 1 by printing 1. Like it's just remembering where it's left the iteration. So it's just starting from there. And if you just try to run again, you can see we got 3. Again if I just try to run here, you can just see we got 4 and 5, and at last, like if I just print again, you can see at last we got this stop iteration. It means it just completed the, like there is no element present in the iterator. It's just the end of the iteration. So that we got this exception stop iteration. So that's the iterator, and that's how you can just create an iterator from iterable, and that's how you can just call each and every element present in an iterator. So you may ask, what's the use of this iterator, right? So for example, let's say here you can see I'm just storing all the elements in a list, right? So if you just for now I just have 6 elements in the list. Let's say if you are working on a data science project and you will have millions of records in that. Like if you want to process that, like if for example, let's say if you want to process that data, so if you just use this kind of list here, so it's not a memory efficient thing, right? It means we can't store the millions of records in a list, like we may get some memory issues. So that's the reason why we use this iterator. So by using this iterator, we are just gonna access one element at a time, right? You can see here we are just accessing, by using this next keyword, we are just accessing one element at a time. So that's one advantage. And the other advantage is, for example, let's say if you want to create your own, right? For example, let's say if you want to create your own like range kind of function, generally you remember, right? For example, you just remember like range of, right? We used to use like for I in range, right? For I in range, we used to give some range values and we used to print, right? So even this range, right? Inside this range, this is the operation which happens inside the range also, right? If you want to create your own kind of method, or if you want to create your own kind of function or class, you can just go through, like you can just create that using this iterator. So that's another advantage. So I hope you understand the advantages of using this iterator. And here I said, right, you can just use next of, and if you want to print all the elements in an iterator, or you can just use for loop, right? For I in B, you can see for I'm just doing for I in B, I'm just using like print I. And so if I just try to print this, you can see it just started from 2. So I will just run this cell once again, this iterator, I will just run it once again. Now if I just try to print this, you can see now we got like 1 2 3 4 5 6. So that's how you can just access all the elements in an iterator once by using this for loop. Now let's understand the generator. There's only a little bit of difference between this iterator and generator, and we can say that this generator is also an iterator, right? A generator is an iterator, but an iterator is not a generator. So what's the use of this generator? Even for this the usage is same. So for that I will just create a function, right? I will just create a function like, right, I will just give square, right? I'm just giving square of, and here I will just give an argument sn. Then now I will just use like for I in range of n. I'm just, so I will just create a list here, random list. I'll just create a random list here for I in range of n. I will just use like a dot append of I star 2. I'm just appending the square of the n numbers, right? So at last I will just return a, right? Now if I just try to run this, and if I just call this function square of, so I will just call this, right? So I will just call like some b is equal to square of, let's say some 10 numbers I'm just giving. If I just try to print b, you can see here we got like from 0 to 9 we got the square of the numbers, right? So if you just follow this method to print a square of a number by storing all the values in the list, right? So even this, right, even this is not a memory efficient thing. It will just consume all the memory, same as the previous example. Now we have just like, I'm just printing the square of some n numbers, right? I'm just printing some square of 10 numbers. For example, let's say if you want to create some square of like, let's say a million records. So then what you can do, like in that situation, even it's a time consuming, and also it's not a memory efficient thing, right? So that's the reason instead of this return, so I will just use like yield keyword instead of that return. So I will just use this yield keyword. Now I don't want to use this list, right? I don't want to append something to that list. And here even I will just give yield I star 2, right? If I just try to give enter, now if I just try to like b is equal to square of 10, if I just give this, and if I just give print b, you can see now we got like this is an generator object. This square function is an generator object, right? So in similar case, if you want to access this generator, we're gonna use this, like we're gonna use the next. So I'm just using like next of b. You can see first we got 0, now next we got 1, and next we got 4, which is the square of 2, and similarly we got 9. So you can see, in similarly we got like we are just getting the, similarly you can just see we are just getting the next values, right? So even this is a kind of iterator. Even this generator is a kind of iterator. So if you want to create a generator, we're gonna use this yield keyword. You can see at last we got this stop iteration. So we got this exception stop iteration. So that's about this generator. So that's this iterator and generator. And I hope you understood the difference between this iterable and iterator, and also this iterator and generator. And also I hope you understood in which cases we have to use, like in which situations we have to use this generator and iterator. So that's it for this video. So if you understood the video, like the video, and if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please subscribe, and thanks for watching.